we both basically made Neuvillette glazing videos. Neuvillette might be impossible to power creep. Meta-analysis. What makes Neuvillette so strong? And then I have 2 perfect in the thumbnail. So my question is, in your community, what was the reception your glaze video got? Like, was your viewers already on that bandwagon? Were they already on that hype? Did they agree? Did your video come out of left field? Like, when you dropped your video, were people like, wait, how was I didn't even know Neuvillette was good. Like,
I dropped this as the on the 31st of December or something. Like people already knew that Neuvillette was very good, and the reception of that video was for the most part positive. Although there were some people that were annoyed by the overwhelming amount of Neuvillette glazing, not just from me, from the community in general. Like we get it, Neuvillette is great, but it's not actually broken because this character can do as much damage, yada yada. But what I explained in that video is that Neuvillette isn't, in terms of pure damage, isn't over the top compared to the other top tier DPS, but his gameplay is what separates him, and I don't see how they could power creep his gameplay in his niche, like the AoE thing. That's they find a way to make a character insane in AoE and also very easy to play, and I don't know how they go up from there, other than just making the numbers much bigger.
So for you focused on his AoE quality of life?
Yeah, I made the comparison with other AoE teams in the past that have don't have the greatest DPS numbers from a calculation perspective, like a Child National. Like if you actually calculate the team by nowadays standards, it looks like a bad team, like a very mediocre.
40,000 or something, unless you're trying to optimize it.
At free-to-play investment is around 45,000.
Even 45,000 is probably you're probably trying some cheese as well, even to get that high, I think.
Yeah, but and that will put it at something like a Yuga level. But then the gameplay of the team elevates it because it's good in AoE and it's also pretty nice in multi-wave. It has great front load damage. And in the same way, Neuvillette isn't over the top in terms of DPS, although he's very, very good. Like he's at the level of the top DPS, while having massive AoE advantages and massive playstyle advantages. To me, he, at this moment, is just a prototype of a broken main carry. I don't know what they'll do in the future, but I doubt he will be just power crept directly.
For your audience, would they like already know that before you made a video? Do they agree with that? Was it just like a full-on glaze with your community as well?
Well, if I said that I discovered Neuvillette was broken on the 31st of December of the 2023, I would be lying. But I discovered it like in the SAS period, I guess. Like I was already on the Neuvillette train from back then.
Oh, okay, so your community was always hyping him then?
Yeah, because many of them started hyping him because of me.
I think mine's probably pretty similar, right? Because so I did my day 1 Neuvillette video here, and some things I got right, some things I got wrong.
Yeah, I remember Neuvillette saved by Shelling or something.
Yeah,
I remember this topic about Neuvillette, like this guy Dumiaf is saying he was carried by the blessing because there was a charge attack related to the blessing when it came out. People said that as soon as the blessing would go off, he would fall off. But then Furina came out.
Okay, so my initial video, I didn't actually think about vape, so that was a mistake I made. So I thought like Taser and like Hyperbloom, I thought those teams like sucked. I thought Mono Hydro was pretty good, like with Mono or Child, but I didn't even think about vape at all. So then like 2 days later or whatever, I made this video about the Xiangling teams, and I also talked about like Child as well, I guess. But from what I understood, like this was like one of the first videos that really talked about vape Neuvillette, and at the time, quite a few people thought that vape Neuvillette was only good because of like the blessings or whatever, and I don't.
Yeah, more than the blessing, it was the fact that there were many enemies in the base that could basically gave Neuvillette a stack because of the element they had applied on them. So the vape team, because of how Nahida works with her elemental skill that is long lasting, in the second rotation you can miss a stack from Neuvillette pretty easily because you don't end up swirling Hydra with Kazuha.
Oh, you're talking about with Nahida. Okay, I see. Yeah.
And while on database, since you get a stack from enemies, basically, you will always be at 3 stacks, and the team will perform very, 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 very well always.
Yeah. So did I make any other videos in between? This was controversial at the time, but I don't think it's controversial now. I think it actually aged pretty god tier to pat myself on the back for a second. But so this video here I made was that at the C0 investments, like that Furina wasn't guaranteed to like be an upgrade to your Hu Tao and Neuvillette teams, and at the time this was very controversial, but I think people quickly realized that was actually kind of true. Like C0 Neuvillette, C0 Furina, it doesn't really, at least damage wise, it doesn't really do much until you get like constellations, but it's easier to play the Furina teams for sure.
Yeah, maybe if you compare it to the vape teams, Neuvillette is dealing more damage there.
Yeah,
Constellation 0.
Yeah, vape teams.
But Furina is adding a lot of damage herself, which in terms of speedrunning, it might not matter like as much as it does for general play because it's turret type damage. It's not front loaded damage. It's sustained damage.
Furina hater. Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean, but overall, I mean. That's the thing, right? Like speedrunning and like hardcore players versus but like I said, Furina is like easier to play. But yeah, once you get like constellations or whatever, then like you get like Neuvillette C1 and stuff, that changes a lot of things. Maybe you get like Furina C2, then she obviously does a lot.
And did you think that the child variant was better than the Furina variant for speedrunning?
For you talking about for C0 stuff, so no constellations at all, or maybe like C1 on Neuvillette.
Did you think this? Do you think this?
Do I still think? I think it's similar at C0. Well, C1 Neuvillette and then like C0 Furina, C0 child. If a chamber is really short to the point where like Furina's like burst skill and burst animation are like a motion picture movie. Yeah. Then I think child's similar. I still don't think like a lot of people do sometimes ask me on stream like, do they have to get Furina to play Neuvillette? And yeah, that's something I definitely don't agree with, because at least like speedrunning wise, it's proven that like you can do fine with a lot of other characters. You could argue even better, at least like speedrun wise. So if you could argue that, then for casual play, like come on, like if you're just doing casual play, then you don't need like Furina either. Obviously she helps a lot, but
I think for casual play, Neuvillette with Furina goes from great to very, very, very good.
No, but the thing is, isn't child almost a similar thing, because you don't have to switch to him, which means you can just focus. If you're a casual player, you just focus on 3 characters.
For the Neuvillette damage itself, it's similar. I calculated it recently. Like it's similar between Furina and child DPS. But if you take the Furina damage into account, which is a lot of guaranteed damage, single target, it counts for something, at least in casual play. I don't know for speedrunning.
I mean, what I would say in like the overworld, like just being able to not having to even switch to another character is really nice and chill. And same thing if you're just trying to like casually clear the abyss. Like we've done a lot of viewer abysses recently, and it's a lot of teams were almost doing like solo Neuvillette, just like barely even switching to the other characters, maybe to group and do a buff a bit. But there is casual wise, there is definitely like nice vibes about basically playing like a 3-man team and not having to. You don't even have to build your child either, which is a good point. You don't need artifacts. You don't need a weapon. You don't need any investment. You need nothing. He just exists. So I think it's pretty chill. But just to clarify, so I'm not saying child is as good as Furina, by the way, in case the Furina hater police is in. I'm just arguing for the case. So I did make a few Neuvillette videos over time. I don't make that many. I did like a Neuvillette Power Creeps Bennett International speedrun.
That was the most clickbaity video you ever had, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it was more of like a meme video because I had the intro thing where I start off so it looks like I'm about to do some interneting. See, it looks like I'm doing it, but then actually no, I don't. So yeah, it's just more of a fun thing, but it was just another gameplay example of how you don't need to pull furina or anything to play him. You can get it to work. Obviously, it might take a bit more skill, but it is what it is.
This video's title is very funny because I wonder if there is a point where the viewer sees a title and it's too clickbaity, like it sounds ridiculous that Neuvillette will replace Bennett on child teams, and so he doesn't click on that. Like,
where's the Hoot Owl Plunge video? There's never gonna be a Hoot Owl Plunge video. I'm sorry. So yeah, I made like my Neuvillette glazing video like 3 weeks ago, and I think people were already on board with this at the time. Like 3 weeks ago, it's actually quite late, I guess, to be glazing Neuvillette. But I think by the time I made this video, like people are like hyping him up a lot now. So I don't think this is like a hot topic anymore, right? I feel like I personally don't talk about like tier lists or any kind of like power level stuff like that. But I think in terms of like hyping up a DPS, I think Neuvillette is basically like the most like hyped of any DPS like ever in Genshin. I think that's safe
if I
to
made
say.
a tier list right now, top tier usually has only supports because they're the most versatile ones.
Yeah.
So if there is a top tier support, you can elevate your account. But I would put Neuvillette in that tier because I feel like his presence on your account can make it very easy for you to build a team that can steamroll an abyss, like an abyss floor by itself. That is the perfect description for a character that should go to the top tier.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said that because I feel like Neuvillette is even safe for like theorycrafters to glaze at this point. Like even like loads of theorycrafters are like just saying it how it is, like how strong he is or whatever. Where usually like before, I think theorycrafters usually, like you said, a lot people do like hype up like supports or like sub DPSs.
I think there's still some resistance from theorycrafters towards Neuvillette.
Do you think there may be some aspects of Neuvillette's strength and hype which are potentially exaggerated, and like people on the other side might think are people like me or you or whoever YouTuber or like whoever person on Discord or whoever's friend on TikTok or whatever? Do you think some of these things are about him are overhyped and disagreeable or debatable?
What's the average reception of Neuvillette? Because that is broken. What's the...
Well, like I said, I feel like Neuvillette has broken new heights for like a DPS being glazed as being like
but I think that from the community, like I'm not completely aware of what they think of him. Like I know that most believe that he's the best DPS, but I don't know if anybody makes exaggeration. Like if the standpoint is that he's the best DPS, is for sure to me. If the point is that he's broken in some ways, he's broken in some ways to me, because his gameplay advantages are very, very good.
It's unique. His AoE, his horizontal AoE is like the abyss wasn't like, if you think about AoE abysses, like usually you get cucked if you don't have like Kazuha's grouping or something to pull enemies closer together, but he's like the only character who has a horizontal beam which allows him to like bypass a lot of how AoE usually works in Abyss.
He's one of the probably maybe the only character in the game that doesn't care about actually having a grouper on team, like the grouping effect on team. Yeah, of course he benefits from Kazuha a lot, but even if he didn't,
that's more damage. I think Kazuha is more like damage wise and like more than the actual grouping itself.
Yeah, and we were talking about it like in a private chat. I told you I feel like Neuvillette is one of the main DPSs that benefits from Kazuha the least, because for most characters it's the damage amp and also the grouping part. But for Neuvillette that part doesn't matter as much, because he's by design programmed to just steamroll AoE content.
Yeah, so for me, I think he does, because I say that Kazuha's like his best teammate overall, just because in every single team, Kazuha will provide like a sick damage buff and like shred, and the grouping is nice as well, and he helps with setups as well. It's like obviously Furina is super strong with him, but there's like ways you can get around that. Whereas like in like basically all teams, unless you're playing like some sort of like Hyper Bloom or like Burgeon or like Bloom or whatever, I feel like Kazuha is like, if you put aside like your team archetype or whatever, the Kazuha's buffs and like how he works, synergizes with Neuvillette is always like so good. So I think that would be my argument. I probably wouldn't focus on the grouping part, but I think that was my argument, maybe.
Yeah. You said that E to you is the best teammate for Neuvillette, but the thing is, Neuvillette doesn't have many great teammates.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my argument as well. It's like Kazuha works like almost in terms of damage. Kazuha works the same as Kazuha always works, but like Neuvillette has less options than other characters, I guess.
Yeah, but the thing is, Kazuha makes or breaks the AoE potential of many characters, because many characters have pretty limited range and are mostly single target oriented. So Kazuha pretty much makes or break the AoE.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's a semantic discussion. It's like he's winning versus winning more, or like whatever. It's just different degrees of how Kazuha helps you. Do you think theory crafters and guide makers got things wrong about him initially, which led to, you could say, I mean, you might not even agree, but you could say which led to him being like underrated in like the first few days or whatever, and then like there's a sudden surge.
I have the full viewpoint of this. What I said back then is that he was going to be great, and his AoE potential was going to make him look like better than on sheets. I just didn't say it would be broken, because I'm scared to make claims like that in pre-release, because of course the actual gameplay when the character comes out has a lot to do with how good they are, and it can't just be defined by sheets or theorizing.
Nice.
So, in a way, you could say that I underrated him, but I was just kind of being cautious. I said that on sheets, Udao had higher single target potential than Neuvillette, but Udao's damage potential, peak damage potential, has a lot of disclaimers, while Neuvillette should be an easier character to play and to reach that highest level of DPS with, and also his AoE would push him higher. And I guess I was right for the most part to make those claims.
Can I get this in writing? So are you saying that you got nothing wrong about him?
My first video about Neuvillette was Neuvillette is the first Hydro Hyper carry. And it sounds kind of obvious now, but there was a lot of talk about him. The context was that people were kind of split on what Neuvillette was going to be, because they don't make a lot of Hydro characters that can deal a lot of damage, like at least they didn't back then. And so Neuvillette being as strong as it was almost made people skeptical that he was going to be as good as he was. I said he is going to be absolutely bonkers in terms of damage without supports, because his base damage is insanely high. So even though he didn't have great teammates back then, not even Furina, his damage per rotation already looked very, very high. So I guess I got that right.
Did you on day one? Did you know about child teams, and did you know about like vape with Chongling?
I didn't focus on those. I guess I focused more on taser teams.
Taser.
Because,
is that fischl? Oh no.
Yeah, I calculated a lot of teams actually, and yeah, I realized that for speedrunning and such, the other discoveries were made, and that's great for him. But the baseline was that his damage was very, very high on basically every team, his personal damage, and that's the potential I saw in him, I guess.
Yeah, Lisa is based. So you looked at taser teams and you still thought that his like damage was crazy?
Yeah, it was like approaching 1 million with a free-to-play weapon. Well, it's not that it was impressive. Like his personal damage was impressive. His team damage brought it down a bit on sheets, because he had fischl, Kazuha, Zhongli in his most frequently calculated team, and fischl isn't the best on that team. Kazuha is only doing some electrocharge damage here and there, and of course Zhongli is a non-factor. So even though Neuvillette dealt a lot of damage, if you contextualize it with the theoretical trends hit up, and then it made a lot of sense to me. People were expecting him to be worse than he actually was.
Do people know about the charge attack cancel stuff? Like how you can speed up his charge attack?
And that was a concern because we didn't know about the charge attack cancel stuff, and so his rotations looked pretty damn long.
Yeah, so that must have been something then that people figured out after that made him even stronger than he thought he was, because now he doesn't have the wind-up time.
But the thing is, I'm the kind of theory crafter that focuses both on damage per rotation and damage per second equally. Actually, probably focus more on damage per rotation. So even if the rotations looked long, his damage still looked impressive to me.
Is it safe to say like he was just a normal? Some people thought he was like a normal DPS, maybe. Is that
a balanced character? Like that was the
balanced character. Yeah, I mean, someone also said there might be like people might have figured out like this whole spin thing after he came out as well. So there was like the charge attack cancel stuff. There was like the spin stuff. There was a child. There was the vape stuff with Xiangling.
It's very usual for people to think that a character is balanced in pre-release, and the reason is that there are a lot of calculations of teams that go even over 80,000 DPS.
Whoa, yes, so high.
So people look at these new characters and see, oh, their best teams do deal like a 70,000 DPS, 6,000 DPS.
Whoa.
It's not something I never seen before, and so they think this character is balanced. Okay, maybe it's undertuned because I have these other there are these other teams that do more theoretical damage, but yeah, I don't agree with that trend of thinking.
Yeah. Also, this one is very speedrun related, but it's the widsith as well. I feel like people didn't realize that widsith, at least for speedruns, it just destroys basically every single other weapon apart from like the battle pass weapon and his signature.
Vape.
I don't know. I mean, technically, you can bold the elemental damage in non-vape teams as well, but for vape you can do EM.
Let me just be clear. I hate widsith as a weapon. I'm not a speedrunner, so I have no fun in running that weapon ever.
Yeah, and I like it because a lot of the alternatives are like pay-to-win weapons, and they're not even as good. So it's like the gacha weapon that a lot of old people have at R5 is like, it ends up, if you have a bit of patience, it ends up being better than like all the pay-to-win weapons. Which
if you're a speedrunner, you're already accustomed to repeating a certain.
I mean, but you don't have to buy like battle pass weapons or whatever.
Yeah. But if you're a speedrunners, you have that patience because you're already accustomed to repeating a certain room dozens of times. So it's 3 times more. But if you just want to have fun in a more casual, general way, I like widsith.